and welcome to the Culture Cave. I'm Anthony, and that's Konrad.
Hello!
Well, Konrad, pretty sure I said it different than I did last week, but we'll go with it anyway. Konrad, how are you this week?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm full of beans and energy.
Chili for tea? Chili for tea tonight?
No, it's leftover pizza, actually, for tea.
Beans
tonight,
on pizza?
Yeah, listen, I'm a man of certain tastes, all right? No, I've never eaten beans on a pizza. I would never do that to myself. I have some self-respect.
Fair enough. Well, you know who doesn't have self-respect?
Go on.
Me, apparently. So the comments have been at us again, Konrad, this week.
What have they said?
I want to stick up for us here. Because the first episode we put out, about the breakdown for episode 1 back a couple of weeks ago, we said, we were calling the character of Angel, we were calling them Angel, okay? Now, someone came at us in the comments in that first week saying that we were pronouncing it wrong and it should be pronounced Angel. Now, you know, that's a cell phone. That person's watching the dub.
Well, that's wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not Spanish, but I know it's not pronounced like that.
We were trying to be a bit more cultured than that. We were trying to actually toe the line. We were trying to say Angel because we didn't want to be like, you know, we didn't want to be offensive. We didn't know where the line was. Now, people in the comments have told us that we should be saying Angel. I can't even pronounce it, so I'm just going to say this to you. We're saying Angel. You know, if that comment from the first episode had their way, we'd be saying Angel. So bet your lucky stars that we're not saying that.
We're trying, all right. We're sitting here trying. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and
there was a striker for Aston Villa called Juan Pablo Angel, and
that's right. Actually,
if you've got an issue with our pronunciation of Angel, you take it up with Colombia and that man, all right? Okay.
Take it up with every football commentator that should have been saying Angel, but they're saying Juan Pablo Angel. We got it from there. We're going to continue it. Sorry about that. We have taken advice on lots of other things. Like I used to call Ike Eek. I don't know why. I really, really don't know why. That was a real moment of stupidity for me. But anyway, every week, Konrad, we start with you going through your pre-thoughts for the episode after waiting a week or a few days since watching the last. Well, Konrad, take it away.
Hello, Konrad here, ready to dive into episode 3 of 1899, figuratively of course, perhaps literally, we'll see. We've had one person in the ocean thus far, jumping in, or getting out, I guess, in Daniel's case. So, I'll just bang my desk, hopefully that doesn't show up in the recording. What do I think is going to happen in episode 3? So, I think there seems like there's a mutiny brewing against Ike. And I'm going to say it's probably going to happen in this episode. That seems likely, given the dispositions of the crew and passengers. I think there's, aside from the mutiny, there's going to be like more forces gathering to prevent Ike from taking the Kerberos and the Prometheus back to Europe, because I think someone is maybe in control of this whole situation in a way that hasn't been explained yet. More Jerome and Oleg, maybe. I'm going to keep saying that until it's true. At some point it will be. And in the tradition of these creators, I'm going to say we're going to get some more deaths. Maybe from Daniel, maybe from someone else. But there's death is never far away when these lot are involved. So yeah, looking forward to the episode, and I will catch up with you in like an hour's time.
Hey you. Yeah. You. Do you like 1899? Well, as well as these breakdown videos, we also do theories, unanswered questions, and plenty more. Subscribe so you don't miss it.
The episode opens with how all good episodes open, with a main character stuck in a box. So Ling Yi is trapped in a box in the water and is descending down into the sea. What did you take from this when you first saw it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a dream. It's obviously a dream. They tend to open these shows with someone sleeping or dreaming and waking from it. Or well, that's how the first 3 episodes have started.
Nightmare.
A nightmare, indeed. And this is no different. So there's going to be something that I'm going to revisit throughout. I assume throughout this series, or I guess throughout this entire series. But this episode, it really kind of drove it home for me what I really like about what 1899 is doing, and that is the way that it, and Dark did it as well, but it's the way that it balances character development against like the themes of the show. So here we see Ling Yi like sinking deeper into the abyss of the ocean, and it's clearly, you know, a metaphor for her situation, because she is like being trafficked into prostitution. Well, we find out in this episode she's being trafficked into prostitution in America, but it also serves the themes of the show, because lots of people are sort of descending deeper into dark places of their minds, and it's a visual, or I guess it's a visual metaphor that very much is in line with Ike going down his little tunnel
shaft,
in the
his
last
shaft.
episode.
Going down his shaft,
yeah, exactly. So, and it's just such a great balance that they're striking at the moment, and this is another great example of it.
Brilliant. I love the analysis, Konrad. From your very witty, complex mind, we'll go into my... I'm going to bring the tone down a bit here. I'm going to... So, basically, Ling Yi gets her little Rose from Titanic moment coming down the stairs, right? Wearing shoes a lot harder to wear than Rose, I will say. And in that moment,
if Rose was wearing those, she'd have gone over the edge of the Titanic. I'll tell you that much for nothing.
Yeah, definitely, especially when she was spitting. But I'll say about Ling Yi, her coming down there reminded me of that part of the story. And then I thought of, like, you know, Lucien. He's the weeaboo from last week. Loves a Japanese woman, and I was thinking he may be the Jack in this situation. And then, Konrad, I thought to myself, I didn't want to think about this, but I was transported to an image of Lucien drawing Ling Yi, and Ling Yi saying, "Draw me like one of your manga girls."
Nice. Draw me like your hentai. That's what that's.
No. I wouldn't go there, Konrad. You've taken it down another step there, which I didn't want to do.
What even is hentai? I don't know these things. I'm like...
To be honest with you, it really should have been Angel drawing, because he's a great drawer, and we'll get into that later.
Oh, what an artist! Yeah,
yeah, but I just can't stop thinking about Lucien as a weeaboo. I'm sorry, guys, I really just can't. Anyway, so we've got that. We've got so when she wakes up, did you notice who said wake up to her?
It was Mora again, right?
It was Mora again, yeah. So
yeah, I've got some thoughts. I don't want to put that.
You don't want to heavy it at the top.
I'm kind of like bucking. I'm bucking at the reins here, because like I watched this episode and I was like, I've got some theories, and I'm sitting here like fit to burst with them. The Mora stuff and the dream stuff is all going to play into it, but I'm not going to go into it now. I'm waiting until it's apropos of what we're discussing in the episode. But my God, is this the episode where a lot of stuff either fell beautifully into place, or, if I'm wrong, fell so hilariously out of place that it's going to be entertaining either way.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so fantastic. Well, then on to Mrs. Wilson then. So Mrs. Wilson is talking to Yukja and Ling Yi. We find out that Yukja is actually Ling Yi's mother here. We didn't have confirmation of that before, but I think you sort of were thinking that it probably is some sort of connection. So talking about like the idea of like the ship's been turned around, and then Mrs. Wilson says, with every calamity comes opportunity, and then basically says that I don't know, should we just I know you don't want to talk about your main theories, but can we talk about the fact that you did get something right here?
Oh, what about having a human trafficker? Yeah. Did I even write that down as a theory, actually?
You didn't. I tried to get you to do last week. I actually said, have you written that down? And you didn't write it down. But you've got it. Let's be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it started as a joke. You know, many a true thing is said in jest, as evidenced here, because it turned out it was actually absolutely correct. And I did say in the first episode, I'm going to keep an eye on Mrs. Wilson, because she seemed like there might be more than meets the eye with her. And we see some pretty horrific stuff from that character in this episode. I love, we're not there yet, but I do love a very brief scene. Actually, does it come during the montage? No, I don't think it does. But there's a very brief scene later in the episode where we see her kind of undressed and smoking, and it really gives you the sense of like who she actually is as a person. And it's she's
playing a character.
She's one of the worst people on this ship at the moment, I think.
Of course.
There's a rogues gallery forming already, and she's the worst one, I think.
No, I would agree. And I think as well, when you at the very beginning, like the way she's... Now, obviously, I don't know how the show ends or anything like that. Also, I don't want to give away anything from the rest of the season. But the way that she in that first scene in the first episode was like, everyone was drinking tea at the same time as her and stuff, and she was talking as if she knew everyone's business on the boat. It sort of implied that she might know a little bit more of what's going on in the big questions, but then we sort of get a reveal in this episode that she actually was hiding something quite like surface level, I suppose, in terms of the story of the show. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. Do you think she's also going to be heavily involved or know more about the overall mysteries, or is it just, do you think that's her deal now?
I am not sure yet. I think there definitely are people on this ship who are aware of what is going on and are actively participating in it. I don't know if she's one of them, purely because the only time that we've seen any evidence of it is that tea drinking moment. And I wonder if that is something, rather than her being the cause of that, is something that someone else is kind of enforcing upon her. But having said that, it wouldn't surprise me at all if she did turn out to be complicit in what I think is going on here.
Lovely, Konrad. Does that fence feel nice under that tush of yours? Anyway, so
I'm only sitting here because I'm getting ready to jump off. Like I'm warming up.
Warming up on the fence. So okay, so the episode's called The Fog. I wonder why. And then we also have Cresta is like looking for Ada through the cage.
Yes.
So a little tiny bit there. Of course, we know why he's looking for her, because she is missing. We have the autopsy scene with Dr. Murray. The legend that is basically mansplaining away to Mora there.
Yeah.
Also, I love the thing him saying. Obviously, the idea of like looking down on the lower class, because obviously this guy's a worthless piece of crap. But he's saying that like God would want this little girl dead, and then
he's like filtering out the bad seeds. Like, this is like a 7-year-old girl. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but also what's hilarious to me is that. He mentions Charles Darwin, right, and says natural selection, and that's God's way of filtering out the bad seeds. So he's buying into Darwin, but then he's also saying, God did it. God did it.
Clearly he hasn't actually read. I can't remember what Charles Darwin's famous book is called. No, I'm not going to remember it. I was going to try and guess, but I can't remember. Put it in the comments if you remember.
Evolution, a history, I think.
Yeah, sure.
I don't
know. But we'll say that's true. But so the one interesting thing I took from this is that obviously this doctor is a bit shit, so maybe he's just wrong, but he does rule Ada's death as looking like natural causes because there's no signs of violence or any kind of or that she had anything inflicted upon her. We know that probably isn't the case because there was that like weird kind of electronic sound as we focus on her face while Daniel was doing whatever Daniel was doing, almost as if Daniel possesses some means of doing something to people in this place, which I'll come back to maybe a little bit later.
And who knows, the idea of someone having the means to do something to someone else. Jeez, that's a mystery, Konrad. No one else on this ship could do anything to anyone else ever. How vague do we want to be here?
When we, I don't want to give too much away. We've got to keep them listening. Okay. When we actually get to the theory, I'll be like, I think Daniel has a gun. Like, that's the theory.
He has some way of doing something to someone else. That something might be a piece of lead in the heart. We don't know that yet. Dr. Murray couldn't see it. It's an ice bullet. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's fantastic, Konrad. I love it. Okay. So now I'll say here the fog is again. They decide to stop the boat.
Probably wisely.
Ike says like, well, let's stop the boat. We'll stay in position till it clears up a bit. The crew is definitely, like last week you were talking about like mutiny rising. I think by the end of this episode we sort of see that come to fruition. But still, at this point in the episode, it is sort of brewing. But you said it's probably the right decision for the fog to stay.
Yeah, like I mean, mutiny is fermenting here. But I think Mustache Adam Driver points out that the fog has just like suddenly obscured their view and reminds us of the compass suddenly becoming fucked in the last episode, almost as if something is resisting Ike's will to take the ship back to Europe.
Yes, and that's a fact that is echoed by Daniel later on as well.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I mean, if you didn't see the mutiny coming, by this point in this series, I don't know what to tell you, because like Franz is Franz is like openly speaking against the captain by like the beginning of this episode. It's a matter of time at this point.
I actually think whenever he was like in the background of the scene at the very beginning, I think like I could hear him just humming, "Do you hear the people sing?"
Yeah. Where's Jerome? He's gonna go get him. Like he'll wave a tricolor.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have then the reveal of the ribbon from Ike to Mora, and says, "I found this on the Prometheus. It belonged to my daughter. I don't know what's going on anymore. They died 2 years ago." Now, again, you mentioned last week that it's funny that he just talks about Nina, and he actually mentions it again. He says, "my daughter," and then he says, "and the rest of my family."
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, maybe he's just a bad dad. I don't know. Like, but it's probably one of those situations where if Ike could listen back to the way he talks about his family, he'd realize how problematic the way he talks about his other two daughters is. Like, you haven't even named them, Ike. Like, they died as well, but.
Yeah. It's literally demons being created in front of our eyes. Well, not really. They're already dead, But like so.
So there's a very interesting piece of dialogue here from Mora that I think is going to be something that we'll probably return to throughout these breakdowns of this show, which is he says to her, "Can we see things that aren't there and still believe they're real?" And Mora says, "The brain isn't entirely reliable. Everything we see and feel and hear are the result of electrical impulses, and sometimes we misinterpret those impulses."
Yeah.
Now, that is true, but it also, within that, is couched this acknowledgement that an electrical impulse in your brain, whether something sent from within your brain or potentially outside your brain, can make you see and experience and hear certain things, which I think is the clearest indication yet we've had of what I think is going on. Which
you've alluded to multiple times in the last couple of episodes.
Yes.
Just to reiterate to anyone who randomly is listening to this episode first, Konrad was sort of thinking that it might be like everyone's in, it's like sort of analyzing a dream or something. What was it you said? Like there was like an experiment?
So, I have kind of changed it a little bit in this episode, but like going back to the first episode, I think it was like, there's like some kind of invasive memory process by her father that she's being subjected to, and that everyone's kind of in like, or not everyone, but a lot of the people on this ship are part of this same process. Some of that I'm still holding to, but I've kind of reformed that idea into something a little bit more specific in this episode.
Excellent. Okay, so the lower decks are worrying about Ada. We'll come back to that in a minute. Mrs. Wilson. Now, this is. I don't really want to focus too much on this.
This is a rough scene. This was not a good one.
Basically, I'll outline it, and then we can talk about what we want from it. I don't want to focus on it too much. But Mrs. Wilson inspects Ling Yi, down there, and finds out that Ling Yi is actually a virgin, and then basically says that, considering that she's meant to be one of her best girls, that's very surprising. And then she says, "I don't like to be deceived, but I love to be surprised." So and then she says, "I hope you know what this job was." I think she said something like, "when you took the place of the other girl," or something like that. So what I want to point out first of all, before we break down the scene, is Ling Yi doesn't understand a word this woman says.
No. Not
she just gets from her that she knows she's not who she's meant to be.
There's very little. She understands enough to submit to the inspection, if you want to call it that. But I don't think. Well, she probably tells from the way that Mrs. Wilson is behaving. She knows that she's been rumbled. But Mrs. Wilson here reveals that. I wonder how long she's known. Maybe she's kind of always known, to be honest, or certainly always had suspicions. And the fact that she's realised that she's been deceived into, bringing someone who is not a prostitute to America, and she's still going to sell her to people on the ship, is pretty monstrous.
Yeah. She's just make hay while the sun shines. It's kind of her horrendous.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly basically what she says. Like when calamity comes around, actually that's the opposite. She's basically saying make hay while it's raining is what she's saying.
When life gives you lemonade, Sell a
lemons.
virgin to a Frenchman. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what she's saying. Yeah, completely. Yeah, fair enough. So Ike and Mora decide to go back to the Kerberos. They alight.
Yes.
Back to the Prometheus. They alight the Kerberos. Franz isn't happy about this.
No.
But then sort of basically gives Sebastian a wee look. Sebastian then, after Franz is gone, goes over and uses a key to open a little box. Inside is a little triangle, what I would call, I don't know what you would call it, buttons just, connected up with wires, and inputs sort of triangles from a little bit of paper that we've sort of seen this code before in the last episode.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, Ike and Mora leave to go back to the Prometheus. Do you think it's a good plan?
I mean, it's fine, but I mean, they're operating as are most of the people in this episode. They're operating on a level that they don't really seem to understand the complexities of the situation in which they find themselves. I think, which is understandable. Why would they? Ike's man management here, and this is going back to what I said at the beginning of the episode again. Like the inter-character stuff is so good, and it works so well in service of the kind of meta narrative that's happening that most of the characters aren't even aware of. And this is an example of it here. So Ike's man management here, he could say something to Franz. He could be like, listen, I know that you're frustrated. Like, put an arm around the shoulder, but he doesn't do it. And it just foments this feeling that's already there of unrest and being ill at ease. So, okay. Right, I'm gonna get into I'm gonna get into part of my theory here because
because of the little triangle buttons, you mean?
Yeah, so this is the moment where I really started putting things together. So I was coming into this episode being like, this is some kind of dream, or that these people are being stimulated to experience certain things, because we've had in the last 3 episodes you've had these weird electronic noises. It happens in this episode as well, when people suddenly shift into a different kind of plane of reality or whatever, they start experiencing a memory or something like that. And I interpreted all of this so far as taking place within the framing device of Mora in that the sanitarium or whatever, where we saw her dad, Anton Lesser, in the first episode. But having seen the 3 episodes now that all kind of start in a similar way, with a character waking up from a dream where they are remembering something traumatic that has happened to them. So this was the point where I was like, okay, no, that stuff with Anton Lesser isn't the framing device for this entire narrative. It's pointing us at something that is happening to all of these people. That's something that has already happened to Mora, I think, and like Ike's family burning and Lingy being trapped in the box and drowning, or partially drowning. So when Conor McGregor goes and opens his little cabinet and types in the command that he received via telephone, and that looks to me like machine code, because it's a series of basically one or a gate is open or shut. It's 1 or 0 inputs in that. So I kind of dabble with the idea of binary appearing in this show. In the first episode, turned out to be wrong because it was the room numbers and stuff. But I'm back on it again, and the fact that when he started he input a command, and that seemed to be the moment that the idea of mutiny kind of really set, the mutiny on the ship happens from that point on. So I think those commands he put in that he was issued are what sets off the mutiny, and B, this entire thing, everything that we are seeing on the Kerberos and the Prometheus, is actually some kind of computer simulation. Is my thinking. I think the Anton Lesser stuff is being simulated. Maybe even the shot we see at the end of the second episode with the kind of 60s, 70s looking monitors and everything like that. Because even that, obviously, it's more futuristic than the stuff in 1899. But that, to me, still doesn't look quite futuristic enough to be taking place in the kind of world where a simulation of this complexity is happening. And
yeah, I mean, they didn't even have Pong yet.
Exactly. They've got I mean, I suppose you'd had the machine to crack the Enigma machine. So basic computers did exist. But I think they're trying to throw us off the scent here by showing these kind of rudimentary computers in this episode, which we'll get into as we go through the episode. But yeah, so following on from that, everything that's happening here, I think, is a computer simulation, and there's some stuff in this episode that made me like 100% certain that that was the case. And there are certain individuals, so this is a separate theory, within the simulation that are either programs running within it or are otherwise able to control the situation through inputs like the one we've just seen, and like we see Daniel input later in the episode.
Interesting.
So I think there's people on this boat who aren't real. That's my like. There's people who are like the in the Matrix who are just programs running to do certain things.
Like Agent Smith.
Kind of like Agent Smith, yeah.
Is there an oracle?
I don't know if there's an oracle, but what we'll get when they start talking about Henry Singleton, we'll come back to that.
Okay, fair enough. Right, okay, so, geez, okay, I thought we were going to have to wait longer for that, guys. There we go, big drop of a theory there.
Yeah.
Loving that. Okay, excellent. Let's move on without saying too much. So the boy picks up his... I will say, just if you want to comment and like ask for Konrad to tease anything out of there, I can sort of try and slip in some questions next week. I don't want to do too much. I'll tease sometimes, but obviously he's just given us about 5 minutes of a monologue there on a theory. There's not too much to tease.
You've heard enough for now.
I am looking forward to hearing later in the episode, what little things made you think you were 100% right. That's what, because that's building the card tower for it to all fall later. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
We've got it's not just a card tower, it's like a full castle of cards I've made.
Yeah, I can't wait.
A slight breeze will blow that whole thing wide open.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the boy picks up his pyramid and climbs underneath the bed.
Yeah, wonder why he's doing that. Almost as if Mora has a tunnel under her bed too.
Yeah, okay, so obviously, because I think we even hear a little bit of like, I can't remember exactly the noise, but there's something like that would imply he's going in a hole, into the door. I want to tell you this, Konrad. Now, people on this channel think that I'm just as good at you as figuring things out. No, I'm not as good as Konrad. When I was watching this, I actually initially thought, I actually did initially think, oh, he's just going under the bed, which is hilarious because we'd already seen these hatches under beds, which I don't know what I was thinking.
I thought Henry was Mora's brother for the whole of the first episode, so
fair enough. Okay, all right, we'll leave it there. Boat scene. So Mora and Ike are sort of going across. Ike says it was kind of her to take the boy in. Then asks does she have any children of her own. She mentions that she had a miscarriage, but after complications, she can't have any children anymore. Ike says, why are you afraid to go home? She says, I lost everything, which, having just heard about the miscarriage and stuff, you can understand that.
Yeah, I do wonder whether there's more to that than what we know, but again, this is just like really good character development between these two that, further like, or gives us further evidence that these two are main characters as far as there are main characters in these kind of shows.
But how does this like character sort of building and character drama affect your brain now and your heart, Konrad, now that you have a theory that this is all just a simulation?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily... I wonder if it's pulling from their experiences, or maybe it is all just completely fake. And either way is kind of monstrous, to be honest. Like, if these are a mixture of humans who have been submerged in a simulation with programs running to stimulate certain events within the simulation, then making them experience these things and these particularly traumatic events like going through multiple miscarriages is pretty monstrous. And if it is an experience they had in real life that is being pulled into the simulation, that's almost equally monstrous. So I don't think, in a weird way, my theory doesn't actually invalidate a lot of what's going on here, because it's either a horrible thing that they're being forced to experience, or it's a thing that they did actually experience that is being plumbed for whatever ends the simulation it serves. And both are just as bad as each other, really.
Okay, very interesting. All right, so we got Ling Yi and Yukja together here. Yeah. Ling Yi is not happy with the way Yukja has treated her in some sort of way. Yukja is basically asking, like, you got what you want, aren't you happy? Ling Yi says, no, I'm not happy. And then she mentions that she accidentally killed somebody.
Yes.
And then she runs away and hides in a crate.
Yeah, so her like we do find out from this conversation. One of my theories was wrong. I think I'd posited that I hadn't actually written it down as a theory, but maybe we'll come back to it when we do the scoring. But that I was like skeptical that this was like a real journey the ship would have taken, because its crew was so like its passenger list rather, not crew, was so like multicultural. Like, it seemed unlikely to me that someone from China posing as a Japanese geisha would appear on a ship to England and then sailing to New York. But it does appear to be the case here. So her mother kind of got her out of wherever they were, somewhere in southern China, presumably.
Well, actually, yeah, like her mother but it sort of implied that her mother actually was a tag along after she had accidentally killed Mei Mei, you know?
Well, so yes, that's true. But so it says like Ling Yi kind of complains that she had to hide from men on the ship from like Hong Kong or somewhere.
Listen, I'm not saying Yukcha's an angel here or an angel here, right?
Yes, no, she's definitely not an Angel. Like, I think we can all agree on that. But either way, Ling Yi is very, like, for someone who is being potentially sold into prostitution, she seems very defiant about and like angry at her mother for putting her in situations where she had to hide from men, and then she runs off and goes and hides in a box above decks. We get the electronic sound as she climbs into the box, and then suddenly, as you said, we have a flashback to the memory of her accidentally killing Mei Mei and taking her place. I'm convinced that, so this is like adding to that simulation theory. It's actually a separate theory, but it compounds it. I think that electronic sound is the cue to tell us that the simulation is like simulating a memory or experience for the individual in question. It's some kind of like electric impulse, like Maura was talking about earlier. And yeah, then she recollects that drowning in the box and is rescued by Oleg, which is nice, complete with another electric sound to bring her back.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I will say as well, I really love that scene. Whenever basically she was watching it all from the crate and she was like in the place of Mei Mei's corpse, I thought it was a really horrific way to show someone a flashback of their own sort of memory. You know, I thought that was.
I didn't even catch that she was in place of Mei Mei's corpse.
Well, that's what I just assume it is, because she was in the crate while there was, you know, her mom Yukcha was saying like we have to throw it overboard, and then they threw it overboard. So she's basically in the place of Mei Mei's corpse in that thing.
That definitely checks out. But yeah, that's a very grim way of depicting that, but definitely like tonally consistent.
Yeah. And as you say, Oleg to the rescue, gives a jacket. It's dirty, but it's warm.
He seems like a decent guy. I like Oleg. Like I'm hoping nothing bad happens to him.
Real salt of the earth, you know. Salt of the earth, you know. Brexit type. But anyway, I'm only joking. Oleg's a great lad. But anyway, I've got it written here. Do you hear the people sing? It's swelling. This is swelling. You can hear Enjolras from Les Miserables throughout the boat at this point.
Yeah.
There is some chat from the lower decks saying that the boy is cursed. We never should have brought him aboard this ship. And Franz is rallying the crowd.
Yeah, so Franz's behaviour here is quite interesting as well, as someone who seems to have quite a lot of focus put on him, because he tells Tove about Ada, which is kind of like what lights the fuse of mutiny, before taking her to the body. Mm-hmm. But it's quite hard for me to tell whether he's doing this out of a genuine compulsion to give Ada's family some closure, or because he wants to incite them to violence. And I think it's possible that it's a bit of both. But the way the character is played, it does feel like he does have like a moral compass, I think, which makes him quite an interesting character. Like, he's not. I don't think this is purely opportunistic.
Yeah, like Emer and I, when we were watching it, we were basically like always laughed anytime Franz did something that we thought was dead on. Translate that to the international audience, that we thought made him a good guy.
Yeah.
We looked at each other and we're just like, Baron and Yoncha had to give him a likable role in this show, because they could have completely ruined his career with his role in Dark. They had to give him something that made him a nice guy.
Yeah, give him some redeeming qualities.
yeah, exactly. So obviously Tova then takes the body down. While she's taking the body down, we get. Now, we're not dwell on this a bit, let's keep it PG around here. Well, let's keep PG. But basically, there's a bit of the power of the dog going on again here. Angel and Cresta through the bars of the lower decks. They get it on, Konrad.
Yeah.
I was gonna say get it on.
It's so talking about characters who are really interestingly characterized. Like Angel seems infatuated with Craster's scar, as if like the physical damage is attractive to him because he can't show how damaged he is. And it's like, and what I really like about the writing of this show is that a worse written show would simply let that be the characterization. They wouldn't comment on it. They'd be like, "Oh, he's a damaged guy," and that would be it. But I think the way he's presented in this show kind of calls out that that's a very childish and patronizing kind of attraction. Like that's not, he doesn't actually care about Craster as a person. He's just kind of he's just kind of like aroused by the damage that he's able to, or that he doesn't have a choice in. He has to wear on his face, which I find really interesting. And then Craster, like so he doesn't see Craster as a person, just his damage. And then Craster's feelings for Angel seem very mixed still. Like I can't even tell if Craster is like gay or bisexual. Like he doesn't seem to find Angel attractive, but he engages with him physically. But it's kind of like the way it's depicted is like quite forceful, like he's taking the power back in the situation or something. It's a really like provocative. Well, it's not a full sex scene, but it's a really provocative scene between them, and I really like this relationship because it's complex in a way that's quite challenging.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in terms of the complexity of it. Like, it's hard to nail down the motives of either of them, and you've also got Ramiro there as well as like the shadow in the situation. So is it a love triangle? Is it a hate triangle? Is it a power triangle? I don't know. It's sort of maybe all three of them. Definitely the power dynamic there as well as like the sort of the symbolism of the upper class and the lower class in terms of like passing things through the gate and everything. To me, it's actually, I don't know, it implies like a seedy power dynamic there, but at the same time, you know what I mean? I don't, who knows? There could be a legitimate thing that we'll just have to see how it goes on. But at the minute, it's interesting. Okay, so on the Prometheus, we have Ike and Mora looking for the logbook. It's not there, but they do notice that there is another shaft in the captain's quarters of the Prometheus. Yes.
So, okay, right. So there's a few things to discuss here, and I'll deal with them in order. So. She goes down into, in fact I'll stop at the bit that you've just stopped at and we can like check whether you want to go any further. So she goes down into the shaft that's also in the captain's quarters on the Prometheus. Not a lot happens there, but then it does cut to Daniel, it cuts between these two and Daniel and Boy.
We can talk about that. We can talk about this all in one big go, like
Okay, so the Boy, as she's doing this, the Boy comes back from the shaft under Mora's bed, pyramid in hand, and then notices the deployed beetle of Daniel's crawling under the door into his hand, and then Daniel comes into the room. Now, before I was kind of like, that's weird, I wonder what the deal with this beetle is. And then I started thinking about things in terms of a computer simulation or a computer program, and I was like, now hold on a second. Daniel is exploiting a literal bug to get to places in the ship that he isn't supposed to go. And I was like, okay, so is Daniel like a program that is like exploiting bugs to get about the place and you know, causing some kind of disruption to the simulation? So that's one thing that I was like, I had to pause it and I was like, oh my god, I fucking cracked it. And just take a second. And then we find out something that's maybe a little bit more of a deep cut, but like, so Ike is talking to Mora about how the 3 ships for the shipping company were sold to a British investor called Henry Singleton. Now, there's a red herring here, I think, because they're talking about, they were dry docked for 3 months. What were they doing to these ships? They were building all these things. And I was like, I don't give a shit about any of that, all right? That's all nonsense, whatever. He's called Henry Singleton. A singleton is a class in object-oriented programming that basically enforces its own uniqueness. So a singleton is like is a type of class that it can only ever be instantiated once. And I don't think he's called Henry Singleton by accident. I think they've chosen that very specifically. So to me, I don't know if Henry Singleton is actually a person. I think he might manifest.
I just want to tell the audience, sorry, just before you keep going here. Konrad works in IT.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is maybe brilliant, or maybe one of the biggest instances of taking your work home with you that I've ever seen.
This could badly backfire. Well, it could also expose how incompetent I am at my job, to be honest, because I'm not like a front end developer. So like you know, the design patterns aren't my forte. But yes, so basically to put it in like, or try and put it in not layman's terms, I don't want to patronize people, but to put it in simple terms, like a class kind of wraps around the functionality of bits of a program. A singleton is basically like, this class can only be instantiated once, which makes me think that he is sort of not an oracle figure, but I think this naming is designed to evoke images of a being within this simulation who is in control of everything, who is at the top of everything. And I think Henry Singleton may not be a real person at all. He may exist within this simulation as like, you know, a manifestation of that class. But I'd be surprised
Can you explain to us what a class is? Sorry, just so, if there's any like people out there wanting to actually really delve deep into your theory here.
So, okay, well, this is where I'm going to expose my own incompetencies.
Sorry. I'll cut it out if I don't.
No, okay. So, like on my basic understanding of it, like in like object-oriented programming, you have like you tend to have a lot of classes and objects, and a class kind of like wraps around classes and methods, and classes tend to like wrap around methods. Methods are the bits that do things. So you say like I don't know, your class would be dog, and your method, and within that there'd be a class called tail, and then you have a method within tail, the class tail, called wag. Like so,
okay.
Like kind of think about it in those terms. So in this, I think the Henry Singleton class like sits above everything else and wraps around it. So within the Henry Singleton class, you've got like Prometheus and you've got Kerberos, and within those classes you've got Mora and Ike, and within those classes you've got like methods of go down shaft and all this kind of like. But everything.
And is that what made you think that even the sort of stuff that everything we've seen is within this simulation, is what you're saying?
Yeah, like as soon as this was really the moment where I was like, fuck off, like he's not called Singleton for no reason, like come on now. So I was like, everything here, all the Anton Lesser stuff, everything that we're seeing, it's all meaningless. There's well, not meaningless, because it's still really enjoyable and I still like the characters, but I think there's a level to this narrative that we haven't even seen yet, and I don't know if we'll see it by the end of this season, to be honest, because it's potentially so complex.
I mean, as well, like, what are the chances that this show, like, this is what makes me think it's crazy if this theory that you have is correct. In Dark, when we were watching it, I'm a mathematician, and therefore there was so much I could unpack about the idea of infinity and everything. You know, so there was so much into physics, the physics of it as well. What are the chances they would make a show that now feeds into your area?
Yeah, like feeds into my area of semi-expertise. I like if it's I can't wait to see if this is right, to be honest, because I'll just be here. I'll be feasting on theories till 2025 at this rate.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Right, okay, so that's cool. Big theories, loving the big theories. Now, I like, okay, guys, I do this with Konrad sometimes, where I do potentially try and lead him somewhere just to see where he goes. It might not mean anything, but when I first watched this, I did actually really think to myself, like, what's going on with the fact that they mentioned 3 ships? Because we know the Prometheus and the Kerberos, and they mentioned 3 ships were taken by Henry Singleton. So that, like, when I was watching it, I was immediately like trying to wreck my brain. What is that 3rd ship? You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's, to be honest, I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because you would have mentioned it if you had.
Yeah, I wonder if, well, at this point in the episode, I probably would have thought that it was like these are like all of the ships are separate instances of the simulation. And by the end of this episode, once we see the crew list or passenger list rather of the Prometheus, I think I'd probably have become pretty cemented in that belief for things that we see on that passenger list. Like the each, I'm sure there is a third ship. I wonder if we'll ever get the name of it, but they all seem to be different instances of the same simulation potentially.
Okay. Awesome. I just want to mention as well, like Oleg takes Ling Yi next to the rowboat port. I don't know what to call this. I don't know what to call this.
It's his lunch spot. It's where he and Jerome hung out, and then now he's taken Ling Yi there to.
It's where the triangle buttons are as well. So I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot going on in that little area. Leaves Ling Yi there. Fog comes in. We've already, to be honest,
good.
We've already talked a lot about the Mei Ling Yi stuff, so we don't really have to focus on this too much. We sort of just get confirmation that she accidentally killed her friend because she wanted to steal her ticket to London to get on the boat to go to America. Anything more to add there? Have we covered most of it?
I mean, the electric sound again as she's thrust into her younger self, but we've kind of discussed that already. The one like kind of character note I have for Ling Yi coming really out of this episode is, I'd like to know what it is that she's running from that means she needs to get to England so badly, because she seems like really keen on leaving where she is even before she accidentally kills Mei Mei. Whether it's just, a desire.
We do know the circumstance of having to hide away from men while Yukcha is on the boat with them. That explanation, maybe already she was trying to escape her life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it might be as simple as she didn't have a very good life and she wanted to go somewhere for a fresh start. But that's certainly what I was considering about her character by the end of this episode.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. The lower class gather around Ada. Yes. Cresta has been... you're flashing there a couple of times. Sorry, guys. We'll just not worry about that. Cresta has been off with Angel during the search for Ada. Now, this is the bit where I find really interesting, and this is actually something that I think is also in Irish culture, and that's the idea that when someone dies, you open a window to let their soul out. And obviously here they weren't able to open a window, so immediately my theorizing brain's going, being like, "Oh my god, her soul didn't get out." So what does that mean? You know what I mean?
She's going nowhere. She's coming back. I do like. It's interesting as well because Cresta, obviously, like we have seen from this group of people that they are fairly religious as a group, but Cresta hasn't necessarily seemed particularly religious.
Hasn't really shown it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, this shows he has, at least he's at least semi-religious, in trying to respect the I guess you'd call them funeral rites. But it's interesting, and it's like I always love stuff like this that just shows you how other cultures deal with death when it's kind of slipped into narratives. It's always interesting. Yeah.
No, it's something I have personal experience with as well. The whole idea of when someone dies, you open the window and stuff. So it is. I don't know if it's an Irish-wide thing, but I don't know why I would have experienced it if it's not. What are the chances that I randomly had one person in my life who believed in that? Okay, so Franz finds more bodies. So there's more bodies. So what's your theory about this? Do you think Daniel's done this as well?
Yeah. So I think there's no
leading question there.
Yeah, but they've been killed in the same way. Like there's no blood, no sign of violence. Their eyes are open, but they're sort of definitively dead. But it looks like that the more I think about it, the more it looks like their kind of souls have left their bodies. But I think it's in a very like within the context of like a computer simulation, like the thing that is being pushed into them by this simulation that animates these people has been removed. And I think Daniel's whatever device it was he used on Ada can remove people from this simulation, maybe wake them up, maybe outright kill them. I'm not sure, though he doesn't seem. He said sorry, didn't he? Yeah, he was remorseful when he killed Ada. So he doesn't seem like the kind of person who'd go around just killing people with malice. So I think these people are these are either kind of programs within the simulation that aren't actually real people, or he has woken these people up.
Okay, interesting. All right, so Yeah, it's a little bit like, actually, in what you're describing, I'm imagining something like in The Matrix when someone got unplugged and their body just fell limp.
Yeah, kind of like that, but hopefully not as not quite as finite. Not finite. Finite as like. I don't want to have Switch being like not like this and then collapsing into a pile. Is Joey Pantoliano in this series or not? That's what I want to know.
I mean, that would be fantastic. I want to see Keanu Reeves. But anyway, machine...
That'd be great.
Yeah, so Ike takes Maura down to the engine room, and there is a machine there, which apparently was created to measure steam pressure. The one on the Kerberos never worked, though.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a rudimentary circuit board, and they look for signs of bodies in the coal engines before Ike finds a scrap of the logbook in one of the engines and conceals it. As a total aside here, so I mean, we'll probably come back to this machine a bit later because it plays a pretty crucial part in the end of the episode. But just if I say it, that looks like a circuit board to me, but like a really, really fun, like rudimentary one, which again I think might be a bit of a red herring because the complexity of this simulation, if it is a simulation, means that it's probably a lot more advanced than that stuff. But as a total aside, one thing I noticed, and this might be me being completely wrong, but their lamps kind of look like electric lamps as well. Like they don't look like gas lamps to me. Like there's no flickering, and the light is a very pure kind of almost white light as opposed to like the sort of warmer glow of oil burning. So yeah, that's.
Are you coming at the props department here, Konrad? Are you coming for them?
If this is them making oil lamps, listen. Me and the props department for these two people have had a run in over the torches never being explained in Dark, and I'm here again to say you didn't explain the future torches, and now are we to believe that this is an oil lamp? So yeah.
Baron, Yoncha, fire your torch, guys. Right? Yeah. Because the thing is, I imagine them all gathered around at the end of the filming day and said, "Costume, dead on." Yeah. Score, dead on. Sets, fantastic. Props, come into my office.
Yeah. We filmed the whole show and no one noticed. Yeah, they just had torches. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a production thing, but I saw those and I was like, that's not an oil lamp. Come on.
Fair enough. Okay. A bit of what do you call it? Confirmation bias here, I think, as well. So we find out now. This is the thing I want to hear what your thoughts are on, because this is something that you definitely. Well, obviously, Ling Yi returns. We'll talk about her in a bit as well because we get into the Lucian stuff. But Lucian has a letter now. Part of your theory was that only Ike and Maura had letters.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's clearly. I think by the end of this episode, Mrs. Wilson has shown she has a letter as well.
Yeah, actually, it's literally in 2 minutes' time when she puts her money that Lucian gave her into the box. Yeah.
So that's me up shit creek without a paddle on that theory, quite frankly. But I mean, I think the letters have. I wonder if it's that the letters are there to give purpose to the people, excuse me, on the ship. Like it's almost like a definition of them as elements within this simulation, to be like, it kind of pushes them to explore whatever they've lost. So in Maura's case, it's her brother. In Ike's case, it's his daughters. Something like that, but because the simulation needs them to be undertaking certain actions in order to find out whatever they're trying to find out through it.
Okay, interesting. So unfortunately, Konrad, that is a wrong one. We then have the little dance from I don't know why I said little dance. It's sort of quite patronizing, but the dance from Ling Yi. Yeah. Then that's Lucian now interestingly says, no, I don't want that, when she starts to take off her kimono. Yeah. And then he just wants to be there for a while, and then he goes into a fit on the ground. We did also see that Clemence came in when he was trying to take, like, it looked like he was trying to take a vial of medicine or something.
Yeah.
And then so he didn't get to take that, so now he's on the ground, and he said it'll only last for a minute or something.
Yeah. So I assume. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I assume he has like epilepsy or something like that, and that's what's caused this. But I mean, this is another example. Like, Lucien hasn't come off very well in the first 3 or first 2 episodes, and like Franz, this is another scene that kind of gives him a little bit more.
More about
Not an appealing quality, but like it kind of softens him a little bit. You know, he seems like
a little bit of sympathy for him now.
Yeah, he almost like just wants the companionship of someone other than his wife, who he clearly doesn't like, for a little while. Which is not, I wouldn't call it a positive quality, because, you know, talk to your wife, but also it makes him more rounded a character than just guy who fancies Japanese women.
yeah, it does.
Which is what he was before.
You just reminded me of a quote from Julia Donaldson, because there was like a new documentary out about Julia Donaldson, and she's had a pretty hard life, as apparently most people who are famous have. But anyway, so she genuinely though, but what she said, she was asked one time about giving advice on for married couples, like, you know, any marriage advice, and her advice was to marry the right person in the first place.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's advice to live by.
Advice to live by. Yeah. Okay, so awesome. So then he's sort of going into a fit on the floor. Franz shows Conor McGregor the new bodies and tells Conor McGregor to, you know, take control of the ship. You're the first mate. Take control. Yeah. Sebastian refuses to do it. He does.
Yeah. I'm skeptical of this. This seems like, you know, when you know how the result of a vote is going to go, so you can wash your hands of it and be like, oh, my hands are clean on this one. Like, you know, I told them not to do it. It just so happened that everyone on the crew and lower decks was already like revolting, because you know, we saw him send, like, you know, the signal with the machine earlier, which I think directly led to the mutiny happening. So I don't trust Conor McGregor as far as I can throw him, quite frankly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you would obviously think that Conor McGregor is involved in this simulation somehow then?
Yes, I think he's kind of maybe like an anti-Daniel, not explicitly there to counter Daniel, but I think both of them are operating with knowledge of the situation they find themselves in.
Okay, interesting. Franz does sort of just basically inspire a mutiny at this point, full blown. He says, "You've been overlooked," and then he says, like, "Who will fight?" He hands out guns. Tova gets a gun.
She is very pregnant to be handling a firearm. I would say maybe sit this one out.
Yeah, no, but you know, let her do her thing. That's true. She seems to be able.
I'm not going to tell her not to do it. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, she'll shoot you. But Oleg then tries to assume, because he's been sort of working with Ike, to go and get Ike, and they all sort of jump on him and throw him in a little cell with Jerome.
To the brig with you.
To the brig, yeah.
I've been like predicting Jerome and Oleg stuff every single in my pre-show videos, pretty much every single week since the first one, and it looks like we're going to get some Jerome and Oleg next episode. So I'm very excited. The original Odd Couple is what we've got here.
Yeah, Oleg's trying to get a little Odd Couple thing going with him and Ling Yi. Not going to work.
Yeah. What a threesome that'd be. Well, threesome in like the non-sexual sense.
I know. Like the gruesome twosome, but 3 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that seems to be happening. We'll get back to when they actually commit mutiny in a minute. But Angel draws Cresta. Ramiro finds it. Ramiro basically admits to a few things. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. There was a baby stirring during the scene when I watched it. I've got some notes here, just in case I miss anything. What happened in this scene?
So, Ramiro sees the drawing Angel has done of Cresta, and he kind of goes on a tirade about how Angel has dragged him along with like what is effectively like a fit of passion. He says he killed a priest and is now wearing his clothes. And I think, I mean, he doesn't actually say this, but I get
You predicted that, by the way.
I did. That's their points. Cash money. Is that buckets?
That's also two people in this episode who we found out have killed someone and taken their clothes.
Yeah, I mean, look at this crew and these passengers. There's definitely some murderers on board. That's just.
But the idea they took their clothes as well, it's like very specific, you know.
Yes. So I get the impression that what's being set up here is Ramiro as kind of like a mirror to Cresta, like a person of the lower classes.
Sorry, Konrad. I was gonna wait till after, but the Crest has happened too many times now. It's Cresta.
Is it Cresta? Oh my god! How have you let me say that so many times?
Because I to be honest with you, because I was actually going to put Cresta from Game of Thrones on the screen the first.
That's
few
what
times
I thought it was. Like,
the first few times you said it, I was gonna just put it up, but then you kept saying, I was like, listen, I'm not committed to doing this. I'm not going to do this 70 times in this episode.
Because Cresta in Game of Thrones is like a wildling. I was like, oh, maybe that's like a Scandinavian name or something that they've used, because they're all, they're Norwegians and stuff. But yeah, okay, fine, Cresta. I'll try and say that correctly from now on.
And I will say this to you, Konrad. If I knew I was going to eventually interrupt you to say this, I would have said it the first time. But I honestly was thinking, I'll get a couple of good visual gags out of that. But then it went on too long, and I can't be bothered.
You were sweating by the end of it. It was like, I can't do this every time.
So right now, the listeners are thinking to me right now, like they've been seething this whole time, and now finally I've broken the tension now, and they're going to be like, "Thank you."
You've given them the release. I'll be back to saying Cresta next episode. I wouldn't.
Yeah. If you're listeners, if you're happy with me breaking the tension there, the old Cresta debate, pop in the comments and let us know.
Should they have called him Cresta? I think that's a better name.
Does he have a keep?
Exactly. How many wives does he have?
Yeah.
So Cresta, I think they're setting up Ramiro and Cresta as kind of two sides of the same coin here. So they are members of lower social stratas who Angel is kind of like dragging along with him through his debauched adventures, and they invariably end up worse off for it. So Ramiro has killed a man, he's left his home, all because presumably he loves Angel, who does not love him back, but who is very good at kind of convincing people that he has affection for them when in fact he's just infatuated with them. And I think this is the warning for Cresta. There we go. I did it right. I got it right. Cresta. I had it written down as Cresta and I had to stop myself. This is the warning for Cresta, because I think Angel thinks he's going to do, and Ramiro as well. I think they both are expecting to do the same thing again to Cresta. I think there's more about Cresta than Ramiro, though. I think maybe he's a bit more formidable than either of them give him credit for.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I think I agree with most of the things you said there. The fact that, I don't know, I think I understand the emotionality of Ramiro here. At the same time, you can't make someone kill someone. So
no, that's true.
So even when we get to the backstory of that, hopefully maybe we'll change our minds about how we read that scene. You know what I mean? Okay, so Daniel talks to Mora now. This is just before the mutiny goes bang, right? So Daniel talks to Mora and says, "Odd this fog, almost as if someone sent it to stop the madman turning the ship around."
Yeah. Weird that.
Yeah, weird that. And then Mora basically says, sticks up for Ike and says, "Well, he's lost something. I can understand that." And then Daniel says, "I lost something too." Yeah.
So the fog. To revisit what I said really early on in the episode, I think the fog is a part of the simulation kind of defending itself against Ike trying to break from his designated path, his behavioural path that's expected of him. I wonder if Daniel is like trying to awaken Mora to the fact she's in a simulation but can't explicitly come out and say it because A, it would sound ridiculous, and B, maybe it would do irrevocable damage to someone's brain to be like, everything you're experiencing is fake, and you need to wake up from it. Like maybe that kind of, I don't know, there's like something to do with consciousness there, that your brain can't handle that kind of shock to the consciousness and it needs to be sort of slowly woken up to the situation or something like that. So that's point one. Point two is when he says he lost someone too, I'm still kind of like, is this her brother? Like, does she not remember him? Like, does she even have a brother in reality? Like, there's a lot of questions about Daniel at the moment, and obviously, who has he lost? Could it be his sister that he's lost, and like she doesn't remember him, or something? That would be the kind of line that becomes very poignant further down the line when it's revealed maybe that these two are brother and sister, and she doesn't remember him, or something like that.
Okay, interesting. Ramiro warns Ike that there's a mutiny coming. I mean, he wasn't fast enough because the mutiny literally comes in behind him.
Yeah.
To the sound of The Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen.
Oh, yeah, I love this song. Also, I will say, just before we get to the montage, there's one big theory that I wanted to mention.
Okay, yeah,
something,
cool.
Something Ike's looking at, which is the passenger list.
Yeah, and Maura Franklin's name's on it.
Maura Franklin's name's on it, but there's another name on it as well that isn't highlighted as much.
Okay.
The captain of the Prometheus is E. Larson.
Yeah.
Which I was like, all right, okay, all right. I think I understand what's going on here. So the passengers, I think every ship has the same passengers and is a separate simulation, basically. Like, I think all of the people who are on the Kerberos were on the Prometheus as well. Because Ike is like, I'd be very surprised if E. Larson doesn't. Have we actually heard Ike's surname? I think we probably have, right?
Probably it is his last name though.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if E. Larson wasn't Ike.
You know it's his last name, and I've never told you that, and you don't watch any promotional material, so therefore you must have known that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if Ike was the captain of the Prometheus and Maura was on the passenger list for the Prometheus, it stands to reason that everyone who's on the Kerberos was also on the Prometheus. Which, yeah, it kind of furthers my belief that there's some kind of simulation going on here, maybe, to put all these people into 3 places at once.
But why would he focus just on her name?
Surely
Surely he knows other people's names. Like, he's the captain of the ship. He would know the logbook of his own ship. So therefore, why is he focusing on the fact that Maura Franklin's name's there? Surely he would recognize all the names around it too.
I think he would. I wonder if that's like creative editing, though, just to sort of try and like deceive the audience a bit. Because you are right. Like, I would feel like the first thing you do when you're looking at the front page of a logbook and you see your own name as the captain of a ship that you definitely weren't the captain of would be like, well, that seems a little strange. I should like make a mental note of that to revisit it. But I don't know. Maybe they're just maybe that's like them keeping it on the DL to reward like observant viewers or something, rather than something he's not noticing. That's my guess, because you are right. Like, he should notice that.
Yeah, he should notice that, but I mean, he should also notice everyone else's names if they're all the same passengers.
He doesn't know any other passengers' names.
Yeah, but he's the captain of the ship. He must have looked at the logbook once and then went, "These are all the same names as the first page of my logbook."
That's true. That is true. But I feel like I don't think Ike could name a single member of his crew or passengers apart from Maura.
Yeah.
Like, even Franz, he's just like, I don't know, that's the beard, mustache, beard.
That's why he never
actually,
that's why he never man manages him,
yeah,
because he can't remember his name.
He doesn't know their names, and he's worked with them for 10 years, and it's been too long now. He can't ask.
Yeah, he can't ask yet, exactly. He's just like listening to their conversations through the door to see if they say their name.
Say the name! Yeah.
So funny. Right, okay, so here's we go. I think this is the first one we'll call a proper montage, because the other ones have just been sort of songs. Like, Dark had a lot of montages, which I loved, but these ones, most of the episodes, like, it seems to, they don't go full montage. They just actually have like this little a song that comes in the last scene and then goes out, like, takes them into the credits, whereas this one very much I would say is a montage. So you have the Killing Moon come on by Echo and the Bunnymen. The mutiny comes in, holds Ike up, basically to take over the ship. We also then have one of my favorite moments of the whole season is when Daniel reveals his little device. Yeah. And then it's literally like one of those games where it's like a puzzle game where you have to move everything in the right spot, and there's always only one path you can move things. And then it's like almost like a little remote control that turns on the machine. Now, I'm going to assume, this might be wrong, but the machine that was turned on was in the Prometheus, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
Yeah.
But then the Kerberos disappears with the smoke, or with the steam. The fog. What am I talking about? Steam. The fog. It disappears and goes ploop, and then, interestingly, after it's gone ploop, we get Daniel staring down the camera for the end of the show. So he still exists. It's not like he went ploop and now he's gone forever, because he's standing on the Kerberos when he does it, and it is plooped, but now he's still there when he's looking at the camera. So what are your thoughts about the end of this?
So I think that, not to belabor the computer simulation point, but like, that to me is him reactivating the simulation that the Prometheus is a part of, like instantiating, the class Prometheus, if you like, and that is then being pulled into like in the memory of the computer that this is all happening in, and it's going off to its own instance of the simulation. So while we see the Kerberos disappear, it's actually the Prometheus that is disappearing and going into its own simulation, or its own instance of the simulation, is what I think is happening. The more confusing thing about this to me is that, and you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, because I might have misinterpreted something, but earlier in the episode when the boy comes back from the tunnel under Mora's bed and sees Daniel asks him, "Did you find it?" And I'm fairly sure the boy shakes his head and says no.
Yeah, it doesn't say no. He just shakes his head.
Yeah, he doesn't speak, but he kind of it implies that he hasn't got it, or hasn't got whatever he was looking for. Because I watched this scene and was thinking, oh, is that device the thing that the boy was looking for? And I think where I landed on that was no, I think this is probably the device that he's using to delete people from the simulation or kill them as it's appearing right now. So I do wonder what it is that he's actually looking for under the bed. But yeah, this is probably the best in terms of tone and what's actually depicted and the mystery that it puts forward. This is probably the best montage of the entire show so far. Obviously, I love the song. I do like Echo and the Bunnymen. A lot of cool information given, and yeah, I cannot wait to see where this goes from here.
Awesome. Okay, so that's episode 3 breakdowns complete. The next thing we're going to do is to go into the theory. Konrad, read them out for us, one by one, please. What new theories have you got this week?
Christ, there's so many. Okay, right, so the commands input by Conor McGregor start the mutiny. That's one. This is a big one. This is only 6 words, but it's probably one of the biggest theories I've ever proposed. This is actually a computer simulation.
It's a big one.
Individuals within this situation are either programs running as part of it or are otherwise able to control the simulation through inputs like the one we saw Conor McGregor perform, and Daniel as well. Mora has a tunnel under her bed too. The electric sound effect that occasionally plays is these people having a memory or experience stimulated out of their brain by some kind of electric impulse. Henry Singleton is a class inside a computer program that all of this is happening within. Daniel has some means of deleting people from the simulation that leaves their bodies like Ada's. Every ship has the same passengers and is a new instance of a simulation. Daniel's handheld device does the same thing as Conor McGregor's hidden one, can send commands to the simulation, and his commands to it reactivate the simulation aboard the Prometheus and remove the Kerberos from that instance. So quite a lot of theories came out of this.
Quite a lot of theories. Oh my goodness. I'm loving the direction your brain's headed in.
I'm gonna live or die in the point scoring on this episode, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting actually that screen reveal from the end of episode 2 wasn't shown at all this episode.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really interested to see what that is, because it's very clearly shown as a level above the narrative we're seeing on the ship. But at the point with the way my brain is going at the moment, it's well, if everything on the ship is a simulation, then there's no reason why literally anything we're seeing couldn't also be a simulation. So it's kind of the gloves are off in terms of how deep this narrative goes, really.
So, what the dub this week? It's going to be a short one, as most of them are, to be honest with you. The dub is actually a higher quality than the dark dub was. I'm going to be quite honest with you. And when I say higher quality, I don't mean it's actually good. I mean less laugh out loud moments, and more just sort of a general incompetence. But okay, this is it. The actress who plays Ling Yi in the dub. Now, most of the time, there's nothing notable about it except for the fact that, of course, it's an American accent, right? As they all are. When she is going mad at her mum, though, it's almost like there's a real sort of very teenage LA thing going on. What are you doing to me? Oh my god!
From SoCal.
Yeah. That's what it sounded like, and it just reminded me. I can't remember who the actress is, but on Saturday Night Live, she does it a lot. Kristen Wiig, she
Okay.
does it a lot where she's like, you want to take the AO5 and go down the street, go left, like this, and that's literally what she sounded like yelling at her mom. But the rest of the
Nice.
time, I couldn't really tell. But that's what the dub, Konrad.
I wonder if they meant to get like Alicia Silverstone in Clueless playing Ling Yi, because that sounds like what you've described there.
That's what I got. That's the energy I got from from that scene. As I say, most of the rest of the time, no. I think it just also came across like a little too young. But maybe actually, that's actually the brief. Like, because she's speaking Cantonese to me, I don't actually I can't read too much about how young she is in the tone of her voice, I suppose.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just the note they got when they were casting the dub. You have to have a young teenager for this. But
Yeah.
But it just, to me, it was funny. I just found it funny, Konrad. And that's what the dub's about.
Doesn't seem culturally appropriate. Let's be honest.
It's just what I thought when I watched it, Konrad. Okay, so we'll now sort of quickly move into Konrad's post-pre thoughts, or whatever they're called.
Hello there. Wow, what an episode that was. I've got lots of thoughts that we've probably just gone through in the main episode, so I'm going to keep this quite brief. But I will say, programming stuff, I can kind of do that. That's sort of what I do for a job, so I can understand bits and pieces of this, and it's fascinating. Can't wait to see where they go with that. I think I'm expecting to see more programming concepts thrown out as the show starts to reveal itself, and the character drama, it's really just a kind of lucky dip of which characters you're going to get in each episode now, but they're all good. So I'm sure I'm going to enjoy whoever the focal characters are in the next episode. But that's probably one of the most interesting episodes so far. Can't wait for the next one, and I will see you all next week.
Well, Konrad, that's episode 3, all wrapped up. Final thoughts before we move into the next one?
It's all going Pete Tong here, to be honest. That's my stance. If it is a simulation, it's not a good one, and I feel sorry for all these people. And if it isn't a simulation, I've fucked it in this episode.
You've thrown your theory matrix down the drain here. Yeah. Well, there we go, guys. I've never actually teased this before, but I am going to tease it now. Whenever Emer and I were watching the show for the first time, we actually recorded 5 or 10 minutes of our initial thoughts after each episode. So after we finish with Konrad, we might be putting them up on the channel as well. So just something to look forward to. There might be extra stuff. You've never seen me go through one of these creators' shows, first time before, so maybe this time. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Subscribe, and goodbye.
Goodbye.